I can already tell with the way I'm titling this video that it might be misinterpreted. So I'm going to come out and say just at the start, I do not think that being an NBA player gives you a worse opinion than someone who's never played professional basketball. Um, I would say just simply that just because someone plays professional basketball currently or has played in the past, especially in the NBA, that does not mean that their opinion is more valid inherently than someone who has not played in the NBA or professional basketball. And while I may seem biased in the fact that obviously I am not in the NBA, as you can tell that I am not taller than 6 feet, I'm at that nice 5'11" spot, and I obviously don't have those amazing NBA muscles, right? I am not saying that I'm a better analyst than someone like JJ Redick. I think he has an amazing podcast. He's probably the best NBA player podcast that I've seen and viewed myself. I think he most of the time has really really good takes, and I don't think his bad takes are really that bad. I think he's a really really good analyst. So let me get that out of the way. And like, even this isn't even to bash guys like Grady Dick or Paul George, Draymond Green, like guys like that, like current players who have, a podcast that they do. Like, I don't think that is like the type of guy that's the problem. There's really three guys actually that I can think off the top of my head that I want to talk about that I think are kind of problematic right now. Just starting off with Udonis Haslam, I don't think he has a podcast. I just saw the clip of him on Twitter saying that he said "fuck Bill Russell." So I just wanted to address that because that's ridiculous for so many different reasons. For context, if you didn't see the clip, Udonis Haslam during the playoffs saw that Bill Russell's jersey was retired in the rafters, and he was saying, um, like, "Oh no Miami Heat player would ever be retired in the Celtics rafters." It's like, yeah, you're right, but Bill Russell is not retired in every NBA rafter because he was a really good basketball player. Like, he was a civil rights activist, like someone who was probably, other than Jackie Robinson, like one of the most important like black figures in sports. He was the first black coach ever, to my understanding. He was one of the best, obviously, players in his generation, if not the best. You can debate between him and Wilt. That's up to you. Um, that's why he's in the rafters. Okay, he had like a cultural impact, not like, oh, he was really good at putting the ball in the basket. He had an impact outside of sports. Like, this is someone that you've never seen the way that they've impacted the game. That's why he's in the rafters. So I don't understand why Udonis Haslam would say something like that. And I think that was a really, really bad take. I don't know if he has a podcast. Didn't really check to see that. So if he has a podcast, I haven't seen any clips go viral being horrendous. Two people that are actually really bad, like actually bad analysts of the game, would be Gilbert Arenas and Kendrick Perkins. Gilbert Arenas is not only just a bad analyst, but he's a hypocrite. And he was talking about Asar Thompson, who's a rookie right now, who's 20. He said something along the lines of like, if you're 20 and only averaging 10 points, you're not in my future, which is ridiculous because that makes absolutely no sense. And to prove why that doesn't make sense, Gilbert Arenas averaged 10 points when he was 20 in the NBA. So what are you talking about, dude? What do you mean that is literally what you did, and you became a really damn good player? He also has said things like he would rather have $100 million than win an NBA championship. I don't know if that's like, again, not a professional basketball player, but I would feel like I would want to win a chip. I think part of it was whether he wanted to be the bench guy or the starter, though. So like, I can understand not wanting to be like the side piece on a chip. Like, you'd rather win it, but I feel like everyone wants to be like, as a kid, you grew up, you want to be the guy on a team that wins a championship, like that's the dream. So I don't know. He's just had some really weird basketball takes recently that have gone kind of viral. And I don't know, again, like a lot of this, especially when we talk about Kendrick Perkins, is going to come up of the like, are they just saying this to get attention? Like, is this just to perpetuate their career and keep them relevant, especially with the ESPN thing? I was going to make a video a while ago just about like the media landscape and how ESPN specifically is doing this like bad takes to generate views. And like sports media has been doing this for a while. Like First Take has been doing it forever. Skip Bayless is notorious for it. I just think the more that stuff happens, the less like intelligent your fans are, especially the casual fan. Like sports are really important, especially the media that covers sports and how they portray the players, and the casual fan is not really going to obviously be watching too intently because they're a casual fan. So you, to make sure that they know enough about the sport, you need in the casual media and general media to be putting out good takes with reasonable you know reasonable consistency in between what you're saying, because that's the issue with Kendrick Perkins. Gilbert Arenas is more just saying wild stuff, and you're like, what? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't even know how many things he said. I'd have to do some more research to critique individual takes that he said, and maybe I'll make a separate video. But the point still stands that Gilbert Arenas is definitely not the worst basketball analyst, but this whole narrative that like people should be discredited for not playing in the NBA, like, you know, there's plenty of good NBA analysts that played in the NBA, but there's also plenty of bad analysts that also played in the NBA. It's just that doesn't make you a good analyst just because you played basketball and you were good at it. Analyzing the game and assessing the game and understanding fundamentally what it takes to build a championship roster and what type of development you can expect out of players over their career, and that type of stuff. Gilbert literally did it himself, and he's still saying that Cyrus Thompson's career is over and he's not part of a future of the Pistons. Like, are you joking? That doesn't make any sense. Moving on towards Kendrick Perkins and analyzing him, I think he really is just the biggest says anything for clicks type of guy in recent memory. He goes back and forth on the Celtics, hating them and loving them. I think you also kind of have that like inside the NBA, the TNT crew. A lot of the time, their takes have been pretty ridiculous, and they don't really make a lot of sense. Um, and again, like everyone has a weird take every now and then. Like the Becky Hammond thing was like Jalen Brunson is never gonna like be the guy on a championship team. It's like, yeah, probably. Like Steph Curry is the only one in recent memory who's been the best player on a championship team under like 6'5". So, you know, that's a thing. And she's sort of right, but she's a coach. She coaches the guys, and she's not saying that the Knicks can't win the championship. But is she wrong? Like, is she wrong? Because I feel like, in my experience watching basketball, there aren't many teams that have had like number one option being a point guard and they've actually won a championship. But that's just my observation. Luca probably could be considered that, but he's 6'6", 6'7", something like that. So, that doesn't really count. I just hate seeing bad basketball analysts be critiqued, like guys like Colin Coward and like Skip Bayless and stuff like that. Like people on those lines, they get critiqued constantly, and rightfully so. But like, there's also good analysts that make a good point that get called out because they've never played professional basketball, and I just don't think that has anything to do with watching the game. Whether you like played the game or not does not determine how credible your viewing of the game is. If anything, and this might be a hot take, if anything, professional athletes are worse at analyzing the game because they didn't get to spend. No, that's a crazy take. That's a crazy take because they watch film. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's a crazy take. Never mind. Never mind. To close, I just want to say that it does not mean anything if you are or aren't a basketball player, and if you played professionally or not in terms of how you view the game. That is a non-factor. And sure, yeah, like if you watched and played against two players, right? Like if you played against both Michael and Kobe and LeBron too, like you would probably say who was the hardest to guard for you. but that does not make one player better than another player. And I think all this revisionist history that they do with MJ and Kobe and Bron is kind of disgusting too, just like looking back. We're going on a huge tangent here, and the point is simply this: NBA players can be good analysts. It does not mean that they inherently are good analysts just because they played professional basketball, and it does also not mean that they aren't just saying shit for clicks to get, revenue for whatever media company that they're working for. Overall, you have to take every opinion with a grain of salt, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I just think it's dangerous to suggest that someone is inherently right because they played basketball and the other person is wrong, even though that really has nothing to do with it.